happening, Mom? Thank you for having us out again, man. Yan sila mga pamilya. Yeah, yeah. That's what
Excellent. Oh, Jen will actually speak to it, so she'll speak right from this microphone. So as soon as sure, yeah, so she can speak.
Okay. Okay, Mary, you ready? Meeting call to order, please. I know you can make it. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't have any other material.
No other? You want to see that? Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Here.
Miss Martin?
Here.
Miss Thompson?
Here.
Mia Chow?
Here.
Miss Chun? Miss Del Rossi? Miss Doherty?
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Now go to 3, special order of business. I'd like to ask for a motion to suspend the rule to welcome the consulate from Brazil to the chamber by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Morn. As you can see, the music outside and the people with very bright, colorful colors. We are celebrating Brazilian Independence Day today in Lowell and in front of Lowell City Hall. And not too often we get to have a dignitary visiting us, and I want to welcome the Deputy Consul General from Brazil, Mr. Hugo Barbosa. Mr. Barbosa, if you would come to the podium and briefly introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about the Brazilian Independence Day and your beautiful country. As you know, Lowell is home to many Brazilian people and a big contribution to our community.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Mayor Sakarishaw, for inviting me for this honorable meeting, and also especially thank you for organizing and supporting the beautiful party that we are taking part outside. And today is September 7th is the 200th birthday of the Brazilian independence. We became independent, an independent nation in September 7, 1822. And so because of this landmark, this year we are having several celebrations all over the state of Massachusetts and also New Hampshire. And our Consul General, Ambassador Benedicto Fonseca, he is in Boston right now for the celebration at the City Hall there. But he also asked all the deputy consuls to go to the most important cities where we have the most significant Brazilian communities. So he wanted me to come here and take part in this celebration. So thank you so much for having me here. And well, yeah, but I think it's very important to take part of as an invitee of this school committee. Some years ago, the consulate of Brazil in Boston, we realized that we had a very large community of Brazilian citizens here in Massachusetts, but we were not represented in committees and in the House of Representatives. So we started to foster this activity, and today we have several Brazilian citizens in city halls, and yesterday, 3 Brazilian citizens were elected for the House of Representatives of Massachusetts. So we believe this is a very important activity that the consulate does to foster this political participation. So for me, it's an honor to be here and to be a guest in this meeting. Thank you so much.
Obrigado, that's the word I learned from out there.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Consul, for being here. And the celebration was also joined by some members of the school committee, including Susie Chun and Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, thank you.
So any other comments by any of the members?
Viva Brazil.
Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
I just want to say one thing. I have not had the opportunity to visit your beautiful country, but many years ago we sponsored a Brazilian student for 6 months, and he went to Lowell High School, and he became a very beloved part of my family. And he also was the most valuable player on the Lowell High School tennis team. We bought him a jacket, although I don't think it ever gets as cold in Brazil. He had a hard time getting to, because you take the bus to get to the high school from my house. But it was a wonderful experience, and I've felt very close to Brazil since
Great.
then.
I
so
hope you visit our country
I would
soon.
love
Yeah.
to. Thank
And,
you.
Yeah, the consulate, we also have some programs to support Brazilian, the education of Brazilian citizens who live here, and especially the Portuguese language as a heritage language. We have some programs, so the consulate is open for any kind of cooperation that the city of Lowell would like to. You can reach out to us. We have a cultural and educational department there that will be very open to discuss with you any kind of opportunity for cooperation.
Thank you. Ms. Chun?
Again, thank you for being here in our wonderful city. Being someone who's have students that are actually performing out there right now, former students of mine, and Brazilian community are very strong, and you guys are very resilient, and you guys love your culture, and I admire the strength that you guys come together as a community, and you can see it right there out in front of our chamber right now. It's amazing how you guys start your children at a very young age at preserving your culture, and I commend you guys. And you guys make, again, like Mayor Child mentioned earlier, that the Brazilian community makes Lowell the way it is. You guys make it vibrant. Your culture, everything that you guys do, you just take pride in what you guys do. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for your words.
No other comment. I hope you enjoy visiting our city and have a wonderful celebration outside.
Thank you so much.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry. We now move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the minutes. 4.1, need a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the Lowell School Committee of August 10, 2022, and to place them on file by Ms. Mon, second by Mr. Lay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to section 5, permission to enter, and I believe we have two. One is on about the contract, and the second one is on the OPM, the Owner's Project Manager. And Madam Secretary, I believe you have a speaker.
For 5.2, so if you want to do 5.1 first, because I don't see Mr. George's here yet.
We're going to do 5.1 first. Okay, so permission to enter one is motion by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Chun. Any comments by any of the members? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent.
Now we go to the permission enter on the second item. We do have a speaker yet,
Yeah.
Madam
Paul
Secretary?
Georges? Paul Georges? Not yet.
Okay, so I don't think we have a registered speaker. We need a motion to approve the permission to enter by Ms. Chun, second by Ms. Doherty. Any comments by any of the members? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson? Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
4 yeas, 3 absent, approved.
If I could, Mayor.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you. Just want to just key the committee in on the reason for the separation of the two PTEs. So it's atypical for the committee to take upon itself construction-related contracts. This is by virtue of the federal dollars that are available to us that allow us to partner in different ways with the city, hence the cover memo from Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner also has an update that was requested from the committee during your subcommittee meeting in relation to the HVAC analysis. So if the committee would like that update now, it would be the appropriate time, given the fact that we are talking about contracts related to the ESSER dollars. So I would just like to open that opportunity up, Mr. Mayor, if the committee would like that update that Ms. Turner had offered to research and provide to the committee after the facility subcommittee meeting of the, I want to say August 10th? August 10th? There's, Mr. Mayor, I just want to open up that opportunity, but it's up to the committee if they would like to entertain it.
Any opinions, any comments from the members? That'd be okay, Ms. Doherty?
I'm open to a quick update.
So the update on the HVAC bidder, ENE was the name of the company. They postponed it in June. They postponed it in December when it was going to be a city contract. Then the city procurement officer, he delayed it again in June. And then in August, James Hall texted and said the school committee wanted to know if the scope didn't match what we were looking for, if we could indeed cancel where we were. Once she got that text asking that, she did not proceed with the contract, so we are not officially in a contract. What I'm trying to do right now is get the scope so I can compare it to what you guys wanted to make sure was in there. I think it was called reconditioning or reconditioning. So if it does include that, we could proceed with the current bid. If not, we could go back out to bid now that we know that we don't have a contract. And
Thank you for that update.
and as being that we do want to make sure that we're thorough, the other one with Dorr and Whittier, that is the OPM. And just a quick update with that, we were going to do the Colley Stadium project, and then we were going to research the STEM space issue with modulars. We were told by the chief procurement officer that we had to go out to bid for an OPM. That's a state law. If you're going to be over $1 million in construction, which does include modulars, you would need to get an OPM. The OPM then helps us make sure that we're not getting surprises later on. If we said 1.4 as an estimate, that's just saying 1.4 million. But as you go, if they lift something up in the ground and there's not a sufficient power or water pipes or anything like that, the price could go up. So the cost of the OPM is actually beneficial because it gets that information for you up front, so you know whether to proceed with both projects, either or modify each. So I just wanted to let you know that even though we have not been approved fully yet by ESSER because you have to apply for the modulars, I do advise that we move ahead with the OPM so they can start the research portion.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you for that, and I think you already answered this question, but I just want to be clear. We're going to get additional information, and at that point, we could decide to go forward with one or both or none of the projects.
And I actually think that that must be what we say right now, that we're like almost as though we'll make the decisions as we go. Because right now you cannot afford both. If we worked with the OPM, we would not be able to afford both with everything, 12 classrooms plus heated corridors, things like that. So the estimates we were given based upon a cookie model, bare minimum model. But as we go, if we find out we need more, we have to add or subtract, right? So that's why this design phase with the OPM and the architect, if we do move ahead with that portion, we'll know whether we can proceed with either or both.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we now will move to the memorials. On the memorials, on behalf of the school committee members, I would like to read the following memorials. Joseph August Rodriguez, he was the grandfather of Robert Gignac, former school committee member. Robert McDonald, retired daily school teacher. Charles Norton, retired Stocklosa School Building Service employee. Patricia Fitzpatrick, retired Lowell School music teacher. David Barbera, father of Kellyanne Woodlock, Maury School assistant principal. Please dim the light so we may offer our moment of silence. We now go to the motions. Ms. Del Rossi has a personal situation where she cannot attend the meeting tonight, but she contacted both myself, superintendent, to request that her motions be put forward and it will be spoken for by itself. But I will read the motions just in case any member would like to have any discussion on it. 7.1, Ms. Del Rossi requests superintendent to provide a status list of all major HVAC replacements and repairs. Second by Mr. Lay. Any comments? Hearing none. On Mr. Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's a good motion because on day one of the school, well, even day -1 of the school opening, I went to visit a couple of schools, such as the Stockloza and McAuliffe and the Bartlett schools. They have AC issues, so I just want to make sure that we have those fixed, and so that this motion, I think, is good, that we should keep an eye on that AC problems.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 7.2, another motion by Mr. Rossi. Request superintendent to provide a report in regards to current social emotional curriculum in the district, as well as to report on programs such as DESA, which DESSA, and QUAVER, and where the funding for these programs have been redirected if we no longer have these programs. Second by Ms. Doherty. Any comments or questions on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 7.3, Mr. Rossi requests the superintendent to report on the new space that was created at the STEM Academy so that the family and community members are aware. Second by Ms. Thompson. Any comments or questions on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 7.4, Mr. Rossi requests the superintendent to report on the internal hiring process across the district. Please include any form of hiring rubrics that are used to score the candidates. Second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to say I very much support this motion. I've had a number of concerns regarding following hiring policies and HR best practices. And so I'm hoping that this report will shed some light on it. I'm not sure if it will cover all the areas that, and I'm just going to list 4 that have been concerning for me. Awarding positions while final interviews are being conducted. In this case, the new hire actually posted on LinkedIn that he had the position while finalists were being interviewed. Number 2, not respecting the role of the screening committee, either ignoring screening committee recommendations or hiring people that the screening committee did not actually get to interview. Bringing in people at higher steps than their experience allows. As my colleagues know, we have a system. If you've got a certain number of years of teaching experience, for example, you come in at a certain level. So somebody that maybe doesn't have that and is brought in at a step they really shouldn't be at. And then the final one is providing positions and interviews with candidates who have emergency licensure over other candidates that have the actual licensure, giving positions out because we should be hiring the most qualified people. So I don't know if Ms. Del Rossi's motion will get to some of those details, but those are concerns I've had about the hiring process for the last few years, so I am looking to shed some light on that area, and I think it was a great motion. Thank you.
Right. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The last motion of the night is by Ms. Doherty. Request the superintendent provide the committee with an enrollment analysis for the October 5th meeting that compares current enrollment data by school grade strands with enrollment data over the last 5 years, 2017 through 2022. The analysis should also include expected enrollment trends going forward based on preschool numbers and other available data that would impact future enrollment numbers. Second by Ms. Martin. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I think the motion pretty much speaks for itself, but I did want to just kind of give some context for this. As we know, we've got severe overcrowding at the Rogers STEM Academy. We're looking at, as we discussed earlier tonight, investing millions of dollars in modulars. I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing that, but I think to have a full picture of our enrollment numbers by school, by grade, and I included strands, because obviously if you have a school that has 2 strands, and that's 25 students a class, versus 4 strands, they can fit more first graders or whatever. And I think the timing is right for this. I've asked for October 5th because I know the state requires enrollment numbers for October 1st. So I'm hoping that while we're gathering that information for the state, for DESE, we'd also be doing a deeper dive for ourselves, because we should be looking at how we are efficiently using the space we have throughout the district, and also with an eye forward in terms of what we can expect for enrollment down the road and how we need to start being proactive in preparing for that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Certainly going to support this motion. I'm curious if we would be able to, as part of this analysis, be able to receive data that could give us a sense of transiency in terms of our student population. Looking at over time, and certainly this has been the case, in our city for a long time, we have students that come and go, and that may move between schools. We know that that has a negative impact on their education. I'm curious, as we're kind of projecting, if we could establish if there's a real trend in that we might be able to tease out some information that might help us in making projections moving forward. Every year we get 150 new students who come into the district for the first time. That's something that we should always be aware of as we're, kind of making these projections. But I'm thinking if we are going to go back 5 years, that is at least enough time that we could perhaps get some information just on the kind of, again, the transiency of students as they come in and out of the district that may be helpful to us as we're making kind of projections moving forward. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion's carried. We now go to the next section, which is subcommittees, section 8. 8.1, Joint Facilities and Transportation Subcommittee. Any report, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. The Joint Facilities School Committee and City Council Subcommittee did meet on Wednesday, August 10th, here at Council Chambers. Present from the school committee were myself, Ms. Del Rossi, and Mr. Lay, as well as from the City Council, Chairperson Leahy, Councilor Robinson, and Councilor Gitchier. Ms. Thompson and Ms. Martin also were present, as well as Dr. Hall, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mark Byrne, who I'm not sure of his title. Deputy Commissioner?
DPW Commissioner, yes.
Okay, good. So we had this meeting to talk about what our facilities concerns are, how we can work together better. Some of the items on the agenda had to do with the ongoing issue with window screens and door locks. Mr. Underwood stated that some had been fixed, but the majority of them are still in the process. Now, this was August 10th, and I know that there was going to be continued effort right up until school starting and follow through. So hopefully since that time, more has been done. Mr. Byrne also talked about they've already committed $200,000 to allocated $200,000. They've committed $78,000 to window replacements. The city is continuing to work on replacing and repairing HVAC exhaust hoods at every school to help with ventilation issues. And just that this is an ongoing effort. It's not going to be handled overnight. It's been a long time in coming. And we did get some information that we wouldn't have everything done by opening day, but it was going to continue to work towards that. Without belaboring every minute of the meeting, I just want to go directly to the motion that is going to be brought forward tonight. We talked about the HVAC audit earlier this evening, about how that was postponed. We didn't move forward with that. And one of the reasons was an outcome of this meeting. Councilor Gitchier He pointed out that an assessment, which is what we had originally put out the RFP for, is very different from a reconditioning report, and that was the word he used, reconditioning report. The reconditioning report will give us a deeper report in terms of what we actually need to do. Like maybe this system doesn't have to be replaced completely, mainly only this part of it does. So he felt, and actually the majority of the members agreed with him, we want an assessment that's going to give us the most useful information. So there was a motion made by Councilor Robinson to bring in a neutral party to provide a reconditioning report instead of the HVAC assessment, not in addition to it, instead of it, and to share the cost 50-50, meaning that the city would pick up 50% of the cost of that report, and the school department would pick up 50% of that report, the cost of that report. We had prior approved this school committee to do the HVAC audit, so instead of that, we would be funding towards this reconditioning report. So Councilor Robinson made that motion, Ms. Del Rossi seconded it, and there were 6 yeas. It was approved by the majority. So at this point, I would like to put that motion before the school committee, and Your Honor, you would need to bring it forward, or maybe Councilor Leahy would as chair of the facilities subcommittee, for the city council to vote on it. Both bodies would have to vote to move forward with this reconditioning report and split the costs of doing it in order to move forward. So for tonight's purposes, my motion is to bring that forward to my fellow school committee members, that we provide a reconditioning report and share the cost 50-50 with the city.
The motion on the floor from the subcommittee by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Moran. Any other questions or comments on this report? Just for clarification, Ms. Doherty, and first, yes, I will bring up to Councilor Leahy as the chairperson. I can bring it up to the council meeting as a motion. But for clarification, so the cost of the 50-50 here, this is the cost for the report.
Yes.
Not.
And
It's not an action item for anything else, just to get the report, the cost of the report.
it's the cost of the report, so we have a better sense of what we're facing in terms of repairs or replacement.
Okay. No other comments or question? Roll call, please.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Okay. And are you also done with the report, Ms. Doherty, from the subcommittee? You complete the report as well?
I'm sorry, I was just going to...
But the report with
It's
the
a
motion
report of
is obviously
progress.
done also, okay. So need a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Chun, second by Ms. Thompson. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. We now go to section 9, the reports of the superintendent, 9.1, school opening recap. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to report on the successful school opening for the 2022-2023 school year. This school year, unlike the prior two, enabled us to have both full in-person learning on day one, as well as normal classroom protocols, no mask requirement, those being optional. So it was the first time in some time that our teachers could welcome our children back and see each other's smiling faces, really experience the joy of the first day of school. As I've shared multiple times, I truly believe that the first day of school is an unofficial holiday, and for me personally, it's my favorite holiday on the calendar. So for the committee, given it was the first opportunity for us to truly see the smiles on the faces of our young people, we thought it might make more sense, rather than a slide deck or a memo, for you to be able to experience the smiles of our young people during the first week of school. So our community outreach strategist, Jen Myers, is here and is going to share with you the smiles of our over 14,000 young people in our public schools across the great city of Lowell. Ms. Myers?
Good evening, Mayor Chow, committee members. It's nice to see you all tonight. So I did accompany Dr. Boyd on some school visits for our first week of school last week. It was the most fun I've had in a really, really long time. And the first day we hit 13 schools, The second day, we hit another 9. We actually were back out there today. We were at the Moody and at the Cardinal O'Connell today for, the first day of pre-K and kindergarten. And we met Gigi the Penguin today at the Moody School, who is a very, very close friend of Mrs. Keefe. But yeah, on the first day, we were joined by Councilor Noon at a couple of the schools, at the Daly and the Riley, and then school committee member Chun came with us to the STEM, the Shaughnessy, and the Butler. Overall, the vibe in all the schools was very, very positive. People were just happy to be back together. It really seemed like the first normal year in a long time. And, unprovoked, almost all the principals said and staff members said it was the smoothest opening they can remember in a long time. So that was really nice. The buildings looked incredible. The maintenance staff and the custodians did an awesome job. And the teachers decorated their rooms like unbelievable. They must have spent their entire summer vacation decorating their rooms, because they all look great. A few of the highlights that we saw, the new playgrounds at the STEM, the Bartlett, and the Cardinal O'Connell look incredible. At the Bartlett, one of the features that's pretty interesting is they have something they call the boat. And so kids that use wheelchairs can roll right up into it, and then their friends can sway back and forth on it and give them a ride, and they love it. So Mr. Holt said that it's been a big hit because they have several children that use wheelchairs at the school, and it's been great this year. And at the STEM, they told us that the first time they got to see the kids go out and see the new playground, they were all freaking out. So that was exciting. At the Daily, the staff were all wearing bright yellow T-shirts with their school slogan on it, "Be the change you want to see." And that's spelled B-E-E, and it's got a cute bee on it because Mr. Doyle, their principal, is a beekeeper. So if you guys need honey for, allergy season, you know where to get it. And so every student was also gifted a planner with their design on it with "Be the change you want to be," and it looked great. Speaking of the Daily, 2 of our new assistant principals, Mr. Duffy at the Bartlett and Mr. Casey at the Greenhalgh, Daily alumni. Mr. Casey was a student of Mr. Skinner's. So, and at lunch, the chicken sandwiches were a huge hit. Everyone loves the chicken sandwich. And as we did do this tour, Dr. Boyd spoke to all the principals and staff that we encountered and asked them, "Do you need anything? Is there anything we can help you with?" And people were not shy to let us know what things they, suggestions they had. So at the Morey School, the custodians and maintenance workers wanted the new wicking shirts, the moisture wicking shirts, so that was taken care of. And one of the elementary school cafeteria workers made a suggestion about that the elementary school students, maybe their lunches take a little too long because they're given too many choices and they can't make a choice quickly. So maybe if that got changed, that would move things along a little bit. So we got a lot of good ideas, and in between stops, Dr. Boyd was on the phone the whole time making phone calls and getting things fixed and taken care of, taking notes, so that was neat. At the McAvenue, they have this great STEAM studio where the students are working on all kinds of STEAM projects. And at the Merkland, they have a Gaga ball pit. So if any of you want to go over at recess and play Gaga ball is like dodgeball, but it takes place on the ground, so there's less injuries, like when we were kids when we all got, murdered by dodgeballs. But it stays on the ground. It's like in an octagonal arena, and you punch the ball at people or whatever and keep it. It has to hit them under the knee. And I guess this is a new game that's kind of sweeping recess yards across the nation. And it's become very popular over at the Merkland. And then at the Robinson, we were pretty surprised to meet social studies teacher Mr. DeRoges, because he's 7 feet tall. And that was kind of fun. And he played professional basketball in Europe. And he was apparently a big basketball star in the Merrimack Valley, went to Central Catholic, and played at Wake Forest. So overall, it was a pretty smooth opening. And, nothing ever goes perfectly smoothly. On the second day, we were at the Pine for dismissal, and a bus was going to be late because it got into a little fender bender. But the staff took it in stride. They brought the kids into the gym, played basketball, had freeze pops, had a great time. So, these things happen. And as I said today, we met Gigi the Penguin and got to sing happy birthday to Ms. Upton over at the Moody in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. So she had a full birthday extravaganza. So now I'm going to show you the slideshow from the first week. Here we go. Is it? Oh.
needs to be replaced.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. As we're waiting for this to load, I think it's extremely important to recognize the extraordinary hard work of our staff and families that made this school opening possible. I see President Georges has entered the chamber. I want to also recognize the partnership with UTL. As the full committee knows, since the change of the calendar, all the way back in January, we've been planning for this, what we knew to be a very difficult hiring season. I want to thank Mr. Georges for his partnership. As a result of that partnership, following the presentation, Dr. Hall will share a little bit more of a comprehensive update, but we have 2 classroom teacher vacancies throughout the entire Lowell Public Schools. We have 1 librarian vacancy throughout the entire Lowell Public Schools. So with all of the support positions that we've added in terms of classroom teachers, and Dr. Hall can take you through some of the others, but with all of the positions that we hired to support our children as classroom teachers, we've hired 145 teachers between school years, and we believe from the measures that we have, we are right at the top in terms of staffing among all urban school systems in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think that credit goes out across the entire organization. We had principals standing up job fairs as early as the spring, teachers working across, recruiting their colleagues, their neighbors, to come work in Lowell Public Schools. It was an honor to be able to welcome our new teachers through our inaugural teacher welcome dinner, which was held at Longmeadow Country Club. It's been an extraordinary build-up to a highly successful first day of school, and I think that credit goes out across our entire community. As Ms. Myers was saying, the partnerships and the conversations that were happening between schools were not only with staff, but also with elected officials. A city councilor was able to join us on that first day, and every single individual who was called at any time was extremely responsive to the needs of our children and prioritizing those needs, which led to this extraordinary school opening. With that, was that enough time to get the sound working, Ms. Myers? We still need a couple more minutes. So I did share with you as well that we are returning to normalcy. Another data point that we're seeing, which is allowing us to say, okay, to say confidently that we are returning to normalcy is not just the change in protocols, but also the enrollment figures that we're seeing across the system. As you recall, during the heights of the pandemic, we saw some historic lows in terms of student enrollment overall. We dropped below 14,000 students at one time during the course of the pandemic. Now already we're over 14,300 students enrolled in Lowell Public Schools at this moment. There will be, as Ms. Doherty pointed out, ins and outs throughout the course before the final count, but we are currently seeing more enrollment than we are seeing transferring out, and we expect that to also continue during the course of this month. Extraordinary data point, important data point. It shows both the confidence and demand in the community, confidence in our public schools, demand for public education, and from the committee's perspective, it also does, that is the first count that leads us into realizing normalcy within our budget counts as well, because that October 1 count will feed into that. Ms. Phillips will be able to answer any questions that the committee may have in terms of enrollment, but I'm hopeful prior to engaging in those conversations, if we might be able to get the slide presentation operating. Is it just the sound that's not working? The whole presentation overall? All right, so Mr. Mayor, if we could, I might suggest that we entertain questions and then we pause when the slideshow is ready to go. Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you by way of facilitation?
Sure, that's fine. Else, if you, Ms. Mai, can make the presentation without a slide slow, that'd be okay too, just to save some time. So that way she could complete, and then we can do the questions and comments afterward. Unless she has completed her presentation, we can move to the comments and questions. Is she working on?
Yeah, it's a
What-
I
video.
think
would
we're
be the
waiting
committee
on the
members?
technology. We can't see the video, so we could
Oh, you
ask
wanna see-
questions while we're waiting for the video.
Okay, sure, that'd be fine. Okay.
The
any-
video is photos. So, so the content was shared with you.
Sure. Does anybody have comments or question right now? Okay, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, and I would like to say, great job in only having 3 open positions, is what this report says. Maybe it's changed to 2? 3 open teaching positions, right. And my question really had to do with our last meeting in August. We talked about, I think it was over 750 students that were in some stages of the enrollment process, and I'm wondering if Ms. Phillips has an update on what happened with those students. How many of them, were ready to go for the start of school? How many are still out there? And maybe the number has changed with more students, I don't know, but just an update would be great. Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, school committee members. So as of today, we have 167 students awaiting placement. 167. All of the applications have been reviewed, and the families are missing documents, so they've all been reached out to. But we've placed a little over 1,600 students for the new school year, including kindergarten, pre-K, early childhood, and new students to the district. So out of those 1,600, we have 167 remaining. We do have students continuing to come. I think we've had maybe 20 new students in the past 2 days. So we'll continue to have students trickling in, we anticipate, in the month of September.
I think
I
it's
did have a
important to
little difficulty
emphasize.
hearing her, so-
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize. So, Ms. Phillips, every student who has a completed application has been assigned to school. The remaining students are students that have incomplete application. So for the broader community, there are certain legal requirements of what needs to be provided in order for a student to be assigned to school. In very easy terms, I think most community members know the types of documents with birth certificate and ID, but there's other more nuanced documents as well. So every student who has a completed application has been able to be assigned to schools, and we are also working to support all families who have initiated the process. We do anticipate that the vast majority of those families will ultimately complete the process here in Lowell Public Schools, hence my confidence that the enrollment will increase throughout the course of this month rather than decrease. But of course, there are still transfers that go both directions as families make decisions in and out. There's, Ms. Doherty, I don't know if that answers fully your
Yeah.
question, but I could see it with
No,
the
that-
face mask and.
Yeah, that
Okay.
looks, I just had a little difficulty hearing, but I understand what you've said. So in terms of the report that we did get so far, I personally was very excited, as you all know, about the new playgrounds, and especially, as Ms. Myers mentioned, the one at the Bartlett School, which has a very high population of disabled children. They now have a play structure. It's just, I can't even express how much that warms my heart. My question with the play structures, and I was over at the Cardinal O'Connell today just to kind of take a look. Beautiful playground, but no fence. And I just wonder if Dr. Hall maybe has an update, because especially with a school like the Cardinal O'Connell, it's an early learning center. Many children at that school are on the autism spectrum. You really have to have a fence around the playground because children will take off on you. And I'm just wondering whether we've got fencing ordered, what's the timeline, what's the plan? Because I'm hearing from teachers that without a fence, they really can't bring the children out there. They could run out, and even though it's not a busy street, there's a busy street nearby. So that would be another question for the opening.
Sure.
Thank you.
We can check with the Department of Public Works on the status of any remaining fencing, and certainly if DPW is not planning to provide fencing, we can assess the cost and bring that back to the committee. But we will certainly take that under advisement.
And my last question, I noticed in Brighton, so you focused on the teaching and the para positions, we still have about 30, that doesn't seem
Mr. Superintendent?
Sure. Dr. Hall?
I think there's only a few of those, Ms. Doherty. I don't have the exact number, but in talking to principals, I haven't had any of them recently say they're searching for social workers, with the exception, I believe, of the Bridge Academy, who may still be looking for one social worker, but I can double check on that and send you that info and the rest of the committee members.
Well, I know we had a motion on tonight for these regarding the social emotional learning. Maybe that would be, in that report, you could include an update on the staffing situation. I don't know if that would make sense. But I think it would be important to follow, because we have tried to provide supports throughout the district for the mental health of our students. We all know it's been a tough couple of years. Thank you.
Ms. Myers, is that you standing at the podium? Does that mean the video is actually ready?
No, I just really like standing at the podium.
Okay.
No, so yeah, I have the slideshow for you. It's not going to have sound, but it will have photos, which is the most important part. So here we go. They can't get the music to run, so.
There is music. I can attest to the fact that Ms. Myers did provide music in the software.
I was just going to have Dr. Boyd sing Happy Birthday in Spanish instead. The murals at the Merklin School are really, really beautiful. They have a paraprofessional there who has this hidden talent they didn't know about before.
That concludes the presentation. I think you can see quite clearly why Ms. Myers says it is the best day of work that she's had in a long time. I would concur. Every day that I get to spend a day in schools with our young people, those are the best days as superintendent of schools. And again, I want to thank Ms. Chun for joining me. I think Ms. Chun actually left on her lunch break, came over and visited schools and classrooms, and then went back to her office afterwards. So thank you, Ms. Chun, for giving that time to our young people. They really valued the opportunity to be able to meet a committee member, or as I introduced her, as my boss, which the kids got a kick out of. And as well, a thank you to Councilor Vesna Noon, who joined us as well. With that committee, I submit that as a report of progress, unless there are further questions.
Ms. Mon?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow on with a few questions. So we're looking at, and Ms. Phillips, you can tell me if I understood this correctly. So new enrollments for this school year were 1,600. Is that accurate? Okay, so we had
That's what we
1,600
have,
new students.
including the kindergarten class. Yes.
So that includes kindergarten, preschool, and then all new enrollments. Okay. So as I'm looking at it, so we're looking at about 10% who haven't yet been processed, that are held up with documentation and other concerns. Do we have a sense of what what is the obstacle? How does that break down? I know in the past you've been able to give us a report that said vaccinations versus, other things. What is it, just even anecdotally, that you think is holding this up?
Yeah, so those students typically have multiple missing documents. So families can fill out the online application, and then they have to attach all of their accompanying documents. And so, and they have to label the documents that they attach. So I believe proof of address continues to be a challenge. If families don't have proof of address, they either have to be screened for McKinney-Vento, or they have to get an affidavit from the head of the household that they're staying in. So I think that's usually a holdup, or just uploading documents. But the Family Resource Center is open for people to walk in. That is something that we're reflecting on, as we continue with this process. The online application itself appears accessible to families. The attachment of documents is another step that we need to, to think about. Do we go to an appointment system so that people can bring the documents in? We don't always get readable documents. Families might take a picture of the document with their phone, and then once it gets uploaded to be read by a staff person, sometimes it's not legible. So these are the things that we're learning with the new system.
So would it be possible then at our next meeting to be able to track how these 167 students, as they move into permanent placements, recognizing that there are new students that will come up behind them, but just so we can maybe differentiate and see the kind of process as it unfolds, so we can see the students kind of being given their final school assignments. I think that would be really helpful. And I would agree with you. I mean, I do think that the secret to it all is that parents need to have all the options. For the parents for whom an online process is preferred, they will go through that in 5 seconds. But that we do have to be, aware that for our parents and our city, we need to have multiple ways that people can get us that information and have it all be right, have it all be, appropriate for us. My second questions were around transportation, and I was curious about what our numbers are for overall number of students transported this year, now that everything is kind of shaken out and the bus routes should be somewhat stabilized, both for our elementary and middle, to see what that number is. And I'm not expecting someone to yell it out, but if we could get that information, it would be helpful. My second real question is, what are we seeing for actual rates of use for the new high school program? With the LRTA free pass, how many are being, how many students are taking them? If we're able to kind of judge the efficacy of that. So if you have an answer, that'd be great.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you. I'm not going to be able to give it with the database specificity that I think it deserves, but anecdotally, during the course of my visits to the high school, which have been many over the last few days, the opening of the TransPass distribution was a line that wrapped through the cafeteria when students could access their TransPasses to get their TransPasses during their lunch periods. So by way of observation, extraordinarily high demand based on the supply we had available. We wouldn't have been able to staff greater demand than what we saw. Now, we'll have to get the data on that. Anecdotally, that's a short window of time of observation, but certainly students are aware and are taking advantage of the new opportunity for TransPasses. And for our community who may not be aware, if the committee is okay with me giving a little bit of an advertisement, because this is a new benefit that we're hopeful every student will take advantage of going forward. Students who are eligible for transportation, meaning your students, if you weren't at the high school, would be typically eligible for transportation with a yellow school bus, now have eligibility for free LRTA service. That comes by way of an issuing of a pass, an LRTA pass. So students will get an LRTA pass free of charge by virtue of their eligibility for transportation and being a Lowell High School student. So families, you'll see transportation work very efficiently for your child, that will be free of charge to you, covered by the school committee, but it will be through LRTA. So it's not a yellow school bus that your child will be taking, but your student would have a trans pass that they can take any LRTA bus route to and from school. For our Lowell community, this is a standard practice in many urban communities. We feel highly confident that this will work safely for our young people. However, it is important to remind the community that it is LRTA, public transportation service. It's not yellow bus service as typically is provided for K-8.
If I
Ms.
could,
Wong?
I mean, just to be clear, that's not new. I mean, we've relied on LRTA services historically. We never had yellow school buses. I don't want people to think we've taken something away. We've always relied on the LRTA system. We were just never able to fund those passes for high school students, and with additional funding this year, for the first time, we've been able to do it. So it's a good thing, as opposed to, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I really appreciate that program, and I think the students should take advantage of it for that benefit. And I would think that the number of riders, students taking the bus to school, probably on a rise in the winter time. So even if the number comes out low at this time, I would expect it to be very high in the winter time.
Yeah, so if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you. I would concur, and if we recall back, this is from Civics Day last spring, the survey by our students who requested and proposed this policy adjustment to the school committee. I believe their survey data of their classmates suggested on any given day, students were 70% more likely to come to school if they had access to free transportation. The former head of schools, Samaras, who served as principal for 19 years, he reported that he'd been trying for 19 years as head of school to be able to make this type of program happen, but because of the financial constraints that the school district was facing during the course of his tenure, it just was something that was unable to come to fruition. So he did pass along, as the longest standing, I believe, head of school at Lowell High School, the thank you to the committee as well for making this happen.
Continue, Mr. Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an afterthought. So when can students use that bus pass? Can they use it in the evening, or can they use it on the weekend? Do you know what the rule? Do you remember the rule that we have?
It's to and from school, but I hesitate to give hours because that's different for each student, because we have students that participate in early morning programs and then evening programs as well. So any active route to and from school that a student is taking, their TransPass will be eligible. I'd have to get back to the committee on weekend school activities, but any route that's available through LRTA, the TransPass is eligible for, and hence the reason that we use this at the high school level versus a K-8 level.
Are you done, Mr. Lay? Thank you. Okay. Ms. Thompson?
I'm really excited about this because it does remove a barrier, but I do have a question. If the students or parents went to the LRTA themselves, so they went to, the station, are they redirected so that they're not paying the cost? Because some parents that may not know may decide, hey, I'm going to go get my kid a bus pass, and then they didn't need to pay for it. So I'm just curious about that.
Mr. Superintendent?
It's a good question. Dr. Hall, do you have an answer to that? That might be something we need to take note of.
I don't right now, but we certainly can look into the reimbursement options, because that wouldn't be fair if it was available. I agree.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Hall?
Over some of this stuff, Mayor.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Hall?
I mean, I just wanted to thank a lot of people put a lot of effort into making sure we launch school appropriately, which is, what Dr. Boyd said our #1 mission was. And a lot of people might not see this, but the committee's decision to pay a fair and reasonable wage to substitutes last year was really like the unsung hero in my mind, because we got 200 or 300 people, most with master's degrees, college degrees, or more, who became applicants to eventually fill a lot of these positions, or encouraged by their principals where they were substituting. And I think if any members of the committee asked the principals, you know, how has the sub program impacted the school, I think they'd all universally thank you for getting all these people in the schools, because it certainly relieved a lot of the burden. And to that extent, you can, and also the committee in your contract negotiations, I personally believe, and you know, maybe the UTL won't agree, but the committee's negotiations and coming to a fair and reasonable contract cause us to gain people in the last week or two of school, while a lot of other districts were losing people at the last minute to come to Lowell. So that really caused us to close the gap and only have these 2 openings at the end. We do have a lot of programs too in place that paras are getting certified or moving up or getting education. A lot of our paras stepped up and are now teaching, and that's something that we want to promote internally as well. And you know, another big thing is the principals started in January with their compendium hires and the transfers. You can see from this information that the committee requested that we had 98 internal hires, mostly through the compendium process. And I know there's debate about the compendium. Some people, you know, like it, some don't, but I believe that if you're teaching in a place where you want to be, you're going to perform better and be a happier employee. And I think that's going to cause you to also recruit other people to work in Lowell that you may know or be, you know, your son or daughter are looking for a profession. And I think that definitely helped the process. And of course, the principals started in January. They did a compendium again in April and May, and then one all the way to the end of the summer, and managed all those changes. And they were very aggressive about getting their openings filled right away, which caused us to, you know, go in the positive in the last few weeks. And you can't see on this, but the HR personnel worked tirelessly. Doroth, Sophie, Miss Jarvis, Lisa were working endlessly to in-process people and to do background check processing and the like. So I just wanted to recognize all those people. And also, as Dr. Boyd stated, the UTL was very helpful, and I, you know, credit them for promoting the library jobs and the community school jobs, which developed late in the process. The UTL promoted those, and they caused all those positions to be filled as well. And you would think that with those new positions, that would create gaps, but we had more and more people applying. So it's great where we are, but we'll continue the efforts going forward. Thank you.
Was that Mr. Hall?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Ms. Thompson?
I'm sorry. I just, one thing that I also want to bring up. I noticed that when you're looking at, there are 3 schools that had a significant, I would say, hiring. Lowell High School, the Robinson, and the Shaughnessy. So I was just curious if we could have a breakdown of if those were across grades, were they similar? And I say this just because I would love to know the support structure. If they were all 5th grade teachers, as an example, at a school, then obviously, you know, potentially you'd need some type of support because you're losing the history of the school and the culture of the school to support the teachers. So I was just curious if we have any information towards that.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually believe there's a pending motion from Ms. Martin that is currently being analyzed, assessed, and readied by the HR department. Dr. Hall, can you take a note, and if it's reasonable to add that data to that report? I think that makes sense. Ms. Thompson, if you're open to that.
Any other comments or questions on section 9.1? Hearing none, need a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry. We now go to 9.2. Need a motion to approve on home education by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Martin. Any comments or question? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to section 10, new business. 10.1 is the budget transfer for $544,908. Need a motion to approve the budget transfer by Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Thompson. Any comments or question? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
10.2, need a motion to approve the MOA for paraprofessionals to continue terms of 2021-2022 to serve as substitute teachers by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Doherty. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Yes. Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to 10.3, need a motion to approve the MOA related to evaluations for cafeteria workers, building service employees, and paraprofessionals by Ms. Mon, second by Mr. Lay. Any comments or questions? Ms. Mon?
Just a quick question, just kind of the high points of this MOA.
Mr. Superintendent?
Dr. Hall?
Sure. I guess the high point is I know the committee has been advocating for a number of years to have every employee in the district evaluated, which many of you have championed. I'm happy to report that this should effectuate like well over 95% or more having evaluation instruments in place. I know the unaffiliated personnel would probably be the last area on that. I'm aware that the chiefs are proceeding to evaluate most of their unaffiliated personnel as well. So that's the major high point. There is an evaluation instrument now for all of our labor unions or entities, and it provides areas within the evaluations where a principal can put written feedback or highlight, for example, places where an employee is doing excellent. You'll note there's a part there that says, excellent performance in the following area, or where you could be awarded. For paras, for example, you could write in, this person's an excellent candidate to be supported to become a teacher. And there are also, I think, one of...
Mr. Hall, could I ask you to speak into the microphone? I hear
I'm
some
sorry.
people are not able to hear you at home.
Sure. I think another major positive was, as you'll see, we didn't just have 3 blocks where, it was either, what some would say is doing a really bad job, medium, or excellent. There's 4 areas. So now we have exceeds expectations, meets expectations, and maybe, you have to improve in some areas. We have partially meets expectations. And I think, as the UTL would agree, there's going to be extremely small percentages of personnel that does not meet expectations, but there is the ability for the principal to use that block, should they, as the committee I'm sure would support, give an adequate notice to the employee that they're not performing well. And you can see in the MOA, which I think is a highlight, it echoes or repeats the language in the teachers' evaluation instrument that, when possible, there's going to be advance notice of poor performance, so the employee can be on notice and they won't be surprised with the evaluation. So I see those as the major high points. I'm sure other people would see other things, but I do think it's actually great, too, that we do have a section that says commendations, where the building leader can say, thank you for doing such a great job in this area. Please keep it up. Or even, goals. Please focus on this next year.
Thank you very much. I agree.
Okay. Ms. Thompson?
I was just curious if this is kind of an iterative process or this is the final form. I asked because I was just curious where DEI falls into the evaluation rubric, especially for the paraprofessionals, not so much for the custodians or cafeteria, but I was curious where that's evaluated, or because I know that there's work done on that level. I just don't know where it would fall in the rubric.
Through Mr. Superintendent to Mr. Hall, or?
I think I'm not tracking where you're referencing.
I'm looking at the evaluation form for the paraprofessional evaluation, and I'm just curious, where would there be a space for someone to comment on their knowledge of DEI issues, their support of that, their work towards that in the classroom, making sure that they're aware of it. I know there's trainings that are passed down. I'm not sure if they're taking them or not, so I was just curious where you would see that, or where a teacher could, again, evaluate on that, or a principal would evaluate on that.
And just looking at it, I think section 1 and 2, there certainly could be comments in regards to job knowledge and ability and character and cooperation, but you're right, it doesn't specifically reference that area, but as you can probably understand, this was a negotiated instrument, so there were numerous suggestions by principals who helped with ideas, and certainly the UTL wanted a lot of things added as well, and I think the compromise was the additional comments section where principals could prioritize what they felt was important or what an employee should focus on. So I guess that's how we got to it. I know it doesn't have that specifically, and
Yeah, I guess my only concern is it should be important to every principal, and so I just want to make sure that it's not something that is not evaluated for. Because if one picks it and then the other principal doesn't, let's say a paraprofessional moves from one school to the other, they're not even going to know what they're being measured against. So that was kind of my only reason for bringing that up. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Was that it? Okay, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to 10.4, need a motion to approve the MOA related to Lowell High School clubs and their advisory by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Mon. Any comments or questions?
could I bring forward that Mr. Fiato asked me if a member would mind amending to add an assistant to Tenacity Challenge for $2,000, and he advocated that this is a very important club that has inter-school competition, and a assistant would help the students specialize in the areas that they need to train on to succeed against other schools.
Mr. Hall, was that an assistant to what
It's the Tenacity Challenge. So it lists $1,500 for that. He requested that there be another advisor for $1,500 as well to match that.
Okay. Any?
Second page. Open up the page.
I think I missed it in the packet, so I'm sorry if I have some other questions. So is that what this MOA is in regards to, only the addition of this one position?
Dr.
So the ones listed totaling $26,637, Ms. Martin, those are ones that are not in the contract that they would like to add.
I don't think I do either.
Add for this year. So
I don't see it in my packet.
I didn't have it.
So
I don't
I
have it in my
apologize if I...
packet. 10.4, do we have copies of 10.4? Because I don't have it.
I don't have it with me, but I'm reading it from online.
Do you have it?
Okay, so I didn't have it.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to look at it.
Sure.
before
So the proposed MOA basically requests additional funding for stipends of $26,637, which are student voice and social media, $1,000. That's a new proposed advisor. Outdoor adventure for $3,377. School community and TV production, $5,260. Wellness Club, $2,500. Tenacity Challenge, $1,500. Band, $3,500. Future Teachers of America, $2,500. Outdoor Adventure Assistant, $2,000. Choral Director, $3,500. And Unified Basketball, $1,500.
Ms.
If
Moore?
could I ask, I'm assuming that we could put this off to our next meeting, because not having the list in front of me is a little difficult, and I'm sorry for that. But secondly, not having the numbers, I don't know if those are included, the number of students participating.
They're not, no.
That would be helpful information, which we generally have when we kind of make these changes. So if we could hold this in abeyance until our next meeting, September.
Mr.
later in
Superintendent?
September, whenever it is.
I don't believe that would cause any challenge.
Yeah.
Dr. Hall, are you aware of the challenge that would cause?
No, I
Now
think
back
that's
into 2 meetings a month, so that should
And
be-
it's not a negative, it's just wanting to get the additional information. Do you?
I'm fine with that. I'm just wondering, wouldn't this usually be something we would do in executive session? To talk about MOAs to agreements so that we can, like as my colleague, Ms. Thompson had some concerns about things she might have added in the evaluation. We don't typically vote on the floor without having those discussions for MOAs. I don't think.
Yep, you're right.
I was surprised when I saw it in there, and then I didn't have I don't have 10.4 about the clubs and their advisors, so.
We can schedule an executive session for the clubs. We haven't typically done that in terms of the MOA on the clubs at the high school, but we can do that. Nothing certain. It's an allowable executive session discussion. So if the
I
committee
think
would.
we have done
We
it.
always have.
We always did it.
Been part of the
We
other.
never did it on the floor. Because if we had things we wanted to adjust or change, that was our opportunity to, voice those concerns, and then the administration would bring it back to the unions and negotiate, and this seems to have circumvented that process.
We can do, it's allowable in executive session.
So we're just talking about just a 10.4 here on MOA, or all the MOAs that we already took votes on already?
Well, I don't know, what are your thoughts in terms of the evaluations? Do you want to take another look at that or go forward with that? Through you, through the mayor to my colleagues.
I mean, I think that I do have issue with the fact of, requesting people to do something that there's not a metric for, or not a measurable, not a consistent measurable metric or rubric. So I would appreciate that.
So I think it would make sense to hold these all in abeyance, schedule an executive session perhaps for our next meeting, so that we can go through them all. I mean, again, none of these are executable until the committee signs off on them, so I think that's.
Since we already taken a vote on 2 of the MOAs, 10.2, 10.3, but we do have 10.4, 10.5, 10.6. So three more
Yeah, just
MOAs.
Through 5.
Do you want just to the remaining MOA that we did not discuss to have that in the executive session only, or do you want to retract to the other 2 already also? What is the wish of the committee?
Yeah,
member?
10.2 through 10.5.
Okay, so the votes on 10.2 and 10.3 will retract that, and
Yes.
the members are requesting that 10.2 through 10.6, I believe.
No,
10.6 is the, okay, that's just a consideration. So 10.5 to be taken up discussion in the executive session?
Yep, yeah.
Okay. One of also, Mr. Superintendent, at the request of the committee, myself will withdraw the 10.2 through 10.5 until after the executive session. Do we need to take a vote on that, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just do that, and let's do a roll call on that. So that was A motion by Ms. Mon, second by Ms. Doherty. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
So it's to withdraw now 10.2 and 10.3, and to have an executive session to discuss 10.2 through 10.5.
That's correct.
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
Okay, thank you. And since we are off the path anyway, I was going to wait until 10.8 to acknowledge Mr. Paul George. It's my understanding earlier that, Mr. George, that you were here, that you want to speak on permission to enter on item 10.2, or was it, I'm sorry, on 5.1 or 5.2, Madam Secretary?
5.2.
5.2 on the OPM. Just to let you know and bring you up to date, we already vote on that. I don't know if you still would like to make a comment on that. Nevertheless, if you could speak, come to the podium, please.
The motion, it was something around over $400,000. I mean, so far the school department has pumped, what, 14 million, 12 million, into various things that are responsibility of the city. And I'm going to keep hopping on this because, quite frankly, that takes money away from the school department that can be converted into additional supports for kids, particularly at a time now when we have a crisis, essentially, based upon a couple of factors. One is the pandemic, but the other one is the shootings and everything else that kids have lived through and seeing on TV all the time. This is another, over $400,000 in expenditures related to two things. The modulars going to the SEM and the modulars going to Colley Stadium. Now, I remember the motion was made here beginning of the year with Andy Dakota indicating, yes, okay, they will only put some money into the buildings, but they wanted to find out what the city was going to put into the buildings. You still don't have a real clear understanding of that. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it because I wasn't here at the time, but I was going to advise you not to pay it, just not to do it. I mean, there's a whole other question about this. The language itself specifically says this is for management of the project, if you want, by the owner, paid for by the owner. The owner of any facility in the city is the city of Lowell. We don't own one building. So now are we going to own modulars? That really and doesn't solve the problem, particularly in light right now that the STEM Academy, they've done some great work there over the summer and produced a number of additional classrooms with now, you don't have the emergency situation you had in the fall where kids were in the hallways. They're in classrooms. So I just look at this money and I'm saying, are we going to be in the habit of constantly bailing out the city? When the city's, it's totally their responsibility, solely their responsibility is facilities. And a modular classroom of any sort, or modular classroom or new class space, is totally the responsibility of the city of Lowell. We're looking now in the future at additional money coming through the Student Opportunity Act that the legislature passed. I just see this being pulled away like a vacuum cleaner with this additional money that was passed and appropriated by the legislature because they understood that they had shortchanged communities like Lowell over the years without giving them adjustments that was necessary under ed reform to increase additional funding, and they didn't do it for decades. Well, they tried to correct it, and now what's happening is as the money flows and starts coming to try to rebuild school systems like Lowell with additional supports and additional personnel, additional offering to kids and so on, that's going to be vacuumed away back into the city coffers. You know, historically, there's always been a problem because there's no accountability when it comes to what the city says it spends on our schools and reports to DESE and what they really spend on our schools. Because if they did all the spending that they claim they did, our buildings wouldn't be in the situation they're in right now. Someone's got to keep speaking truth to power on this, and I'm going to keep doing it. Because it's not fair to our kids. Yes, I am president of a union, but I've also been an educator my whole life. And I'll be damned if I see that opportunity that comes with the student opportunity I get diverted away to try to make up for the sins of the city for not maintaining its own buildings for decades. It's not right. It's a moral issue. And we're going to have to fight. There's going to be negotiations coming up soon with all the unions. You know, I think we all realize you got to make the pot a little bit sweeter because you got a shortage of teachers, educators across the whole country. Probably about 500,000 fewer now than there was a couple of years ago, before the pandemic. And we're in competition. You know, the CEO, Chief CEO, told you that we are in competition with other communities. And they're going to up the ante if they can. Oh, they will up the ante because there is too few talented people, and we need to capture them and bring them back into the profession. So I was going to advise you not to vote on that, and I'm sure you probably did, to spend that $410,000. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it. And I think next time I speak on this kind of stuff where I see expenditures going out to cover the city's problems, I won't be alone. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Georges, for being here to speak on item. As I noted earlier, we did take a vote on that earlier on the agenda, but your presence and your comments will be noted and added to the minutes. We now, I would just confirm for another clarification on the MOA, and earlier I thought it should have gone from 10.2 through 10.6 because on 10.6 is another MOA with UTL related to advisors, and this might be it might be on my agenda. Is it on your agenda as well?
On our agenda, no.
Okay, so I have maybe it's on the agenda.
Goes to 10.6 on our agenda.
It's not on our agenda.
Okay, so I do see 10.6 on my agenda,
That's not-
which is also an MOA, and which
An
I
MOA,
think
this is
it's
approval of a doctoral research proposal.
additional
So our 10.6 is approval of a doctoral research proposal.
that's
So that
10.7.
10.6 that you're referencing, the MOA should be included in that motion. I think we might have to do it.
Yeah, so if it's not on your agenda, we're going to take it
not
up in
on
the
my
executive
agenda.
session anyway. Okay,
The motion that I read reads 10.6.
Okay.
By 10.2 through 10.6.
Okay, so our 10.6 is really 10.7, right? Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
okay, and is that everybody about the same page now? So,
Another doctoral research.
Mr. Mayor, I'll pull all of the MOAs with UTL. They will all move to an executive session agenda at a subsequent meeting.
Okay,
okay, wonderful.
so we have,
Okay, and with that clarified, we now go to 10.7. Motion to approve the doctoral research proposal for John William McKenna by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Mon. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson? Mia Chow? Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to 10.8, motion to approve the doctoral research proposal by Karen Driscoll, by Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Thompson. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
You need a first.
I don't have
We did.
it either.
Who was it?
I only have the
Forgot.
agenda.
I think
didn't have
was
the
we
request.
have a first by,
Yeah, the second.
Proposal
Can you just do it again?
research?
yeah, okay, we have a first by, I think it was Mr. Lay, and then second by Ms. Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah. Or Ms. Mon, I forgot.
Ms. Delay? Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson? Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to section 11, convention and conference request. The 11.1 is the need a motion to approve the conference request by Ms. Mon, second by Ms. Doherty. Roll call, please.
Ms. Delay? Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 absent, approved.
We now go to 12, communications. 12.1 is the communications from the Office of Teaching and Learning regarding fine arts, health credits, and graduation requirements. Any comments from either the administration or the members? Ms. Moran?
So I just want to ask if I'm understanding this. So we're putting in place what had been voted on, that the students who are going through arts programming will be able to access the health curriculum through that arts programming for 1 year, and then we're going to revert back to the way it is now, where they won't have that option. Everything will be part of their health classes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, so here's my question. Understanding that because of the way the schedules are, we can't change them now. I mean, obviously, it's September, things are already underway. Before we kind of make it a foregone conclusion that we're just going to go back, could we at least take the opportunity to do some pre and post testing and see what we're able to accomplish? I mean, that was the initial kind of thought process, that we were going to give this an opportunity at the very least, and then see if it works. I mean, I don't know one way or the other if it'll work or not. I don't think anyone does. So if we have to go through this process anyway, and I understand that there's the will of the committee not to do it, but now we're kind of past that point. If we have to do it anyway, let's at least see what works. And it could be a wonderful opportunity for you all to say you were right and I was wrong. And who doesn't enjoy that opportunity? So if we could just communicate back that we'd like to at least track how this works and if there's anything positive. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I'm glad we have the best answer of the night. Any other comments or questions? Need a motion to accept the communication and to place it on file by Ms. Mon, second by Ms. Thompson. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. And 13, any announcement? Hearing none, need a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Doherty. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Feel like this is the meeting of the beginning of the year. A quick non-school meeting announcement. The Brazilian Flag Raising Committee has left a cake for us in the mayor's reception room. So everyone's welcome to go to the room and have a piece of it.